I was 3 days away from marrying my best friend when I heard her tell her mother that she wasn't sure she would have chosen me if we hadn't already known each other for 8 years. I had gone back to Diane's house because Claire had left the final seating chart in my truck. The front door was unlocked, and I could hear their voices from the kitchen. Her mother said, "I need you to answer me honestly. Are you marrying Daniel because you're in love with him, or because losing your best friend scares you more than anything?" There was a long silence. Then Claire said very quietly, "I don't know if I can separate those two things anymore." I stopped in the hallway with the seating chart in my hand. If you've ever learned something you weren't meant to hear, stay with me. Because what happened next almost ended a wedding, an 8-year friendship, and the one relationship I had thought was finally safe. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 30 years old then, a project estimator for a commercial electrical company in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I had spent most of my adult life being better at solving practical problems than emotional ones. 4 years earlier, I'd been engaged to someone else. She ended that relationship 6 weeks before the wedding and told me, with painful precision, that she cared about me deeply, but didn't feel alive with me anymore. I told everyone I was over it. Mostly I was. But certain words stayed sharp long after the wound looked healed. Claire Bennett was 26, a pediatric occupational therapist and my best friend since the year we met, at a volunteer home repair project after a hurricane. In 3 days, she was supposed to become my wife, and now I was standing in her mother's hallway, wondering whether I was about to repeat the worst moment of my life with the person I trusted most. I should have walked into the kitchen. I should have said, "I heard that. What does it mean?" Instead, I stayed where I was. Diane's voice softened. "Claire, I'm not trying to talk you out of this. I know. I like Daniel. I love Daniel, actually. He's been part of this family longer than some relatives I see at Christmas." Claire gave a small laugh, but strain in it. Her mother continued, "That's exactly why I'm asking. Friendship can make a marriage strong. It can also make people afraid to admit they want different things." My grip tightened around the paper. Claire said, "I don't want different things." "Then what are you afraid of?" Another pause. When Claire answered, her voice was lower, "That I'm choosing the life I already have because I know how to survive it." I felt something inside me drop. Diane didn't speak for several seconds. Claire went on, "Daniel is good. He's steady. He shows up. When my dad was sick, he handled things I didn't even know needed handling. When I changed jobs, he brought dinner every night because he knew I'd forget to eat. He knows me better than anyone." Her mother asked, "But?" I closed my eyes. There was always a but. Claire exhaled, but sometimes I wonder if I said yes because saying no would mean risking everything we already are. That was enough. I stepped backward before the floorboard beneath me could betray my presence. I let myself out through the front door, walked to my truck, and sat behind the wheel with the seating chart still folded in my hand. 3 days before the wedding, 212 guests, a florist who had already been paid, a band Claire had chosen because the singer could do an old Van Morrison song without making it sound like a cruise ship performance. 8 years of inside jokes, emergencies, road trips, Sunday breakfasts, bad dates, family funerals, job changes, Christmases, and ordinary Tuesday nights. And one question I could not stop hearing. Would she have chosen me if I hadn't already been there? My phone buzzed. "Claire, did you find the seating chart?" I stared at the message. Then another appeared. "Claire, please tell me you didn't accidentally give table 9 to your uncle and my aunt together. I'm not emotionally prepared for that conflict." Under normal circumstances, I would have answered with something stupid. I might have told her table 9 was now legally classified as a controlled environment. Instead, I typed, "Me. Found it. I'll bring it tomorrow." 3 dots appeared. "Claire, you okay?" That was Claire. 3 words, and suddenly the distance between us felt impossible. Me. Just tired, she replied almost immediately. Claire, get sleep. Saturday's kind of important. I looked at the ring on my left hand, a plain band she had given me during our private courthouse appointment the week before because she thought it was ridiculous that only women had to walk around visibly claimed before the wedding. Then I looked back at her message. Saturday is kind of important. For the first time since I'd asked her to marry me, I wondered whether Saturday should happen at all. Claire and I had not begun with romance. That was one of the things everyone found difficult to believe after we got engaged. We met when I was 22 and she was 18, both volunteering with a church-run rebuilding crew near Wilmington after a hurricane. I was in my last year of college and convinced that owning a tool belt made me more competent than I actually was. Claire had just started school and had never used a circular saw in her life. On our first afternoon, she measured a window opening wrong by almost 2 inches. I said, "That's impressively inaccurate." She looked at my crooked cut on a piece of trim and said, "You appear to be speaking from expertise." By lunch, we were arguing like cousins. By the end of the week, we were friends. Nothing happened between us then. Nothing even came close. She dated a nursing student for almost 2 years. I dated people on and off, then met Natalie, the woman I later planned to marry. Claire became the person I called when I needed perspective. And I became the person she called when her car made a sound she described as metallic but emotionally concerning. Our friendship settled into the kind of rhythm that never needed much explanation. Every first Sunday of the month, we had breakfast at a diner on Hillsborough Street. On her birthday, I bought her something practical and she complained until I added something ridiculous. On mine, she made a cake that looked terrible and tasted perfect. When her father, Mark, was diagnosed with lymphoma, I drove her to appointments when Diane couldn't get away from work. When Natalie left me, Claire came to my apartment with 2 bags of groceries, changed my bedsheets because I had stopped caring, and sat on the kitchen floor while I admitted I felt humiliated. I remember telling her, "I think the worst part is knowing she liked me. She just didn't want me enough." Claire had gone still. Then she said, "Those are not the same thing." What? Being exciting and being loved? They are not the same thing. At the time, I thought she was comforting me. Years later, I wondered if she had been telling me something else. Our friendship changed slowly after that breakup, though neither of us admitted it. It started with small things. Claire began touching my arm when she laughed. I noticed which dresses she wore when we went somewhere nicer than the diner. She once fell asleep against my shoulder during a movie. And I sat there for 40 minutes after the credits because moving felt like announcing something neither of us had named. Then she started dating a man named Evan. Evan was handsome, confident, and the sort of person who entered a room expecting it to adjust around him. He worked in medical sales, traveled constantly, and had an impressive ability to turn every conversation into evidence of his own ambition. I disliked him immediately. Claire told me I was being protective. I told her I was being observant. "You think everyone I date is wrong for me?" she said. "That's not true. Name one you liked." I thought about it. She raised an eyebrow. "Your sophomore year boyfriend seemed polite. He forgot my birthday." I said, "Polite, not attentive." She laughed. But Evan became a real problem a few months later. He wanted Claire to move to Charlotte with him. She had just accepted a position at a pediatric therapy center in Raleigh, a job she had worked toward for years. He told her she could find another one. Claire asked what he would give up in return. Apparently, that question ended the discussion. She broke up with him 2 days later. That night, she came to my house carrying a bottle of wine and a grocery store pie. "I'm beginning to think my taste in men is a public safety issue," she said. I took the pie from her. "This is why I've been conducting ongoing quality control. Your quality control is deeply irritating, yet statistically useful." We sat on my back porch until after midnight. At some point, she said, "Do you ever think about what would happen if we just stopped dating other people?" I thought my heart had misunderstood her. What? She stared out into the dark yard. Not together. I mean, just stopped. Retired. Became those strange friends who travel and complain about restaurant lighting. I laughed because the alternative was asking the question I suddenly wanted answered. "Give it 10 years, I said. She smiled, but there was disappointment in it. I saw it. I just wasn't brave enough to do anything with it. 2 years later, our families had stopped asking whether Claire and I were dating and started asking why we weren't. My sister Rachel was the worst offender. At Thanksgiving, she once watched Claire steal mashed potatoes from my plate and said, "You two know this is exhausting for everyone else, right?" Claire looked innocent. "What is?" Rachel pointed her fork between us. "Whatever this is." I said, "Friendship." Rachel laughed so hard she had to put down her drink. Still, neither Claire nor I crossed the line until one July evening, when a thunderstorm knocked out power across half the neighborhood. She had come over to help me paint my dining room. We had managed one wall before the lights went out. "Perfect," I said. "Now every brush mark will look terrible in a new and surprising way tomorrow." Claire found 2 flashlights in my kitchen drawer. "Your optimism is why people love you. People respect me. Your mother calls me when she wants to know what you're actually feeling." I looked at her. That seems like a boundary violation. She's very persuasive. We sat on the floor with takeout containers while rain hammered the windows. Maybe it was the darkness. Maybe it was the fact that I had spent years training myself not to look too closely at what existed between us. Whatever the reason, I finally asked, "What did you mean that night after Evan?" Claire's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What night? You know exactly which one." She set the container down. "Daniel, you asked if I ever thought about us not dating other people. I said retiring. You looked disappointed when I joked about it." She was quiet. The storm flashed white through the windows. Then she said, "You were still recovering from Natalie. That was 2 years ago." "I know. So what's the excuse now?" Her eyes lifted to mine. No excuse. It was the most frightening answer she could have given me. I had known Claire for 6 years by then. I knew the tiny crease between her eyebrows when she was worried. I knew she rubbed her thumb against the side of her index finger when she was trying not to say too much. She was doing it then. I moved closer. "Tell me to stop," I said. "You haven't done anything." "I'm considering something." "That sounds dangerous." "It probably is." "Daniel." "What?" "You're taking too long." Then she kissed me. No dramatic music, no perfect line. My knee hit a paint tray and sent a roller across the floor. Claire pulled back, looked at the disaster, and started laughing. I started laughing too. Then I touched her face and kissed her again, and nothing about it felt new. That was the part that scared me. Kissing Claire did not feel like jumping off a cliff. It felt like finally realizing the road I had been walking for years had a name. For the first few months, we kept our relationship quiet, not because we were ashamed, because we were terrified. If a first date with a stranger went badly, you lost an evening. If Claire and I failed, we could lose birthdays, families, traditions, and the person each of us called first when life went wrong. So we made rules. We would tell the truth, even when it made things awkward. We would not use our friendship as proof that romance had to work. We would keep separate homes. We would not rush because everyone else thought we had already wasted enough time. Those rules lasted almost a year. Then my mother had minor surgery and Claire spent 2 nights at her house without anyone asking. Then Claire's father had a recurrent scare, and I sat beside her in the hospital waiting room with my hand wrapped around hers until the oncologist came back with good news. Then I realized our lives were already tied together in every way that mattered. I proposed at our diner on the first Sunday of November. Not publicly. No hidden photographer. No ring in the pancakes. I waited until the waitress cleared our plates, took Claire's hand across the table, and said, "I don't want to retire from dating with you in 10 years. I want to build the whole thing now." She stared at me. Then she cried. Then she laughed because she hated crying in public. Then she said, "Ask properly, Mercer." So I got down beside the booth. "Claire Bennett, will you marry me?" Yes, she said it before I finished her last name. For 9 months, I never doubted that. Yes, until I heard her in her mother's kitchen. The next morning, Claire came to my house before work. She let herself in with the key I had given her and found me standing at the kitchen counter pretending to read an email. "You're up early," she said. "So are you." "I'm always up early." "You complain about being up early." "That is different." She set 2 coffees down and leaned against the counter. I looked at her and felt almost angry at how familiar she was. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot. She wore navy scrubs under a gray coat. There was a tiny coffee stain near the cuff of her sleeve. I had seen her dressed like that hundreds of times. In 3 days, I was supposed to stand in front of everyone we loved and promise that I knew her. Now I wondered whether knowing someone too well could hide the things that mattered most. Claire studied my face. "You really are tired." I didn't sleep much. Wedding nerves? I should have told her. Instead, I asked, "Are you nervous?" She blinked. "About Saturday? About marrying me?" Her mouth curved slightly. "Those are supposed to be the same question." "Are they?" The smile disappeared. Claire set her coffee down. Okay, what's happening?" "Nothing. Daniel." I hated the way she could say my name and remove every easy exit. I looked away. She came around the counter and stood in front of me. "If this is about the guest list, I surrender. Your aunt can bring the man she met on the cruise. It's not the guest list." "Then tell me." I almost did. Then I remembered her voice. "I'm choosing the life I already have because I know how to survive it." I said, "I'm just thinking about how much is changing." Claire's expression softened. "Hey," she took my hand. The contact hurt more than I expected. "We don't have to become different people because we get married," she said. "We're still us." That should have reassured me. Instead, all I heard was the problem. Still us. Maybe that was all she wanted. Maybe marriage was simply the safest way to keep what she already had. She squeezed my fingers. "Come to dinner tonight?" "Rehearsal dinner is tomorrow." "I know." "I mean dinner with me. No parents. No wedding folders. No discussion of napkin colors. We never discussed napkin colors. You vetoed 3 shades. They were all beige. They were different beiges. That sentence is evidence of a broken industry." Claire smiled. For 1 second, I wanted to forget everything I had heard. Then she kissed my cheek and said, "7? 7. At the door, she turned back. "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "I am nervous." My chest tightened. She continued, "Not about you. About everything around it. The ceremony. People staring. Becoming someone's wife. It feels big." I waited for more. She looked at me as if she expected me to understand. Usually I would have. This time I said, "Right." Her eyes narrowed slightly, then she left. The workday was useless. I reviewed the same cost projection 4 times and still entered the wrong labor rate. At lunch, Rachel called. "Do you have Dad's tie?" "No." "You said you had Dad's tie." I said I would get Dad's tie. "Daniel, we have 48 hours. I understand how calendars work. There was a pause. Rachel's voice changed. What happened? Nothing. You sound like you're trying to fight a spreadsheet. I leaned back in my chair. Rachel had known me for 33 years. Claire was the only person who came close to reading me as quickly. I said, "Have you ever wondered whether Claire and I are getting married? Because it's easier than not getting married?" Rachel was silent long enough that I regretted asking. Then she said, "No." That fast? Yes. Why? Because I watched you date other people. That doesn't prove anything. It proves you were both miserable at it. I rubbed my forehead. She continued. What did Claire say? I didn't say she said anything. You also didn't suddenly develop philosophical concerns about marriage 2 days before the rehearsal dinner. I stared through the office window. Suppose someone said they didn't know if they were marrying a person because they loved them or because losing the friendship scared them. Rachel's answer was immediate. I'd tell them those feelings can exist at the same time. What if they said they might just be choosing the life they already know? I'd ask what came after that. I didn't answer. Rachel sighed. You heard part of a conversation. I heard enough. That sentence has ruined more relationships than actual cheating. I heard her say she wasn't sure she would choose me if we met now. Did she say that? I thought back. Not exactly. The sentence I'd heard was worse in my head than it had been in the kitchen. Rachel caught my silence. Daniel, I know what she meant. No. You know what you're afraid she meant. That irritated me because it sounded wise. I have to go. Talk to your fiancée. She's my best friend. Then maybe treat her like one. I ended the call. For the rest of the afternoon, that sentence followed me. Treat her like one. I had spent 8 years trusting Claire with truths I couldn't tell anyone else. Now, when it mattered most, I was withholding the one truth that could change everything. At 7 that night, Claire arrived carrying Thai food, and wearing the blue sweater I had once told her made her eyes look darker. That bothered me too. Everything bothered me. She put the bags on my table. I brought pad C, UW, green curry, and enough spring rolls to postpone at least one family argument. I'm not arguing with anyone. You haven't met my mother's opinion about centerpieces. I looked at her. Did you see her today? Claire's hands paused on the containers. Mom? Yeah, this morning. Why? No reason. Her eyes stayed on me. I opened a container. Claire did not sit down. Okay, she said. We're not doing this. Doing what? Whatever strange imitation of Daniel Mercer you've been performing since yesterday. I'm tired. You've said that 4 times. Maybe I'm very tired. She crossed her arms. You asked me this morning if I was nervous about marrying you. You barely texted me all day. Now you're asking about my mother like she's under investigation. I felt heat rise in my chest. Maybe I have a reason. Her expression changed. There it was. The moment I had been avoiding. Claire pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Then give me the reason. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed the folded seating chart on the table. She looked at it. Then at me. The color left her face. You went back to Mom's house? Yes. When? Yesterday afternoon. Her shoulders lowered. You heard us, not a question. I laughed once, without humor. You knew that was possible? No. I knew you had the chart. Claire, I heard enough. Her jaw tightened. What did you hear? Your mother asked if you were marrying me because you loved me or because you were afraid to lose your best friend. She closed her eyes. And you said you couldn't separate those things anymore. Daniel, you said you were choosing the life you already had because you knew how to survive it. That's not all I said. You wondered if you said yes because saying no would risk everything we already are. Claire leaned back in her chair. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Why didn't you come into the kitchen? Because I didn't want to hear the part where you explained why marrying me was practical. Her face sharpened. That's unfair. Is it? Yes. Then tell me I misunderstood. You misunderstood. Relief came too quickly. Then she added, but not in the way you want. The relief vanished. Claire folded her hands on the table. My mother asked me a hard question, I answered honestly. So you're not sure you love me? I did not say that. You couldn't separate love from being afraid to lose me? Because they are connected. That sounds like a very careful answer. Because this is not a simple question. I stood and walked toward the sink. Claire followed me with her eyes. Daniel, look at me. I didn't. She said, I love you. My throat tightened. You've said that before, and meant it every time. Would you have chosen me if we met today? The room went quiet. Claire's expression shifted from frustration to confusion. What? If we met today? No 8 years? No history? No families who already know each other? No Sunday breakfasts? Just me and you, strangers in a room. Would you choose me? She stared at me. I don't know. The answer landed exactly where I'd feared it would. I nodded. Claire stood. Don't do that. Do what? Turn that into something it isn't. You don't know if you'd want me. I don't know you as a stranger. That's the point. No, it isn't. Her voice rose. You're asking me to erase the entire reason I love you and then prove I'd still love what's left. If the only reason is history, it isn't only history. Then what is it? She looked almost hurt by the question. You know, I need you to say it. Claire laughed once, but there was no amusement in it. This is unbelievable. Why? Because for 8 years, you have been the person who understood me without making me perform everything out loud. And now, 48 hours before our rehearsal dinner, you want me to audition for the role of woman who loves you enough. I flinched. That's not what I'm doing. It feels exactly like that. I turned away. Claire's voice softened. Is this about Natalie? I froze. She knew immediately. Of course she did. Don't bring her into this. She's already here. No. Yes, because she told you being steady wasn't enough. She told you she wanted something that made her feel more alive. And now you heard me call you steady and decided it was an insult. That isn't what happened. Then tell me what happened. I faced her. I heard the woman I'm marrying wonder if she chose me because I'm safe. Claire went very still. Then quietly she said, You're safe. I felt my face harden. She stepped closer. Daniel, listen to the whole sentence. You are safe for me, not boring, not convenient, safe. I can fail in front of you. I can be ugly in front of you. I can tell you when I'm scared. I can hand you the parts of my life I don't show anyone else. That still doesn't answer whether you want me. Her eyes flashed. I moved from friendship to romance because I wanted you. Or because you couldn't stand the idea of losing me. Both. The word cracked between us. Claire pressed her palms against the table. Both can be true. Why are you making me choose? Because I need to know I'm not just the person you settled into. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her eyes filled. Do you know what I told my mother after you left? I said nothing. She asked if I was choosing a life I already knew because I knew how to survive it. Claire's voice shook, and I told her no. I told her I was choosing the one person who had seen me change over 8 years and kept making room for the new versions of me. I looked at her. She continued. I told her being with you wasn't survival. It was the first relationship where I didn't have to become smaller to make it work. My anger weakened, but the fear underneath it did not. Claire saw that. That still isn't enough for you. I don't know. The instant I said it, I regretted it. Her face went quiet, not angry, worse. protected. She nodded once. Then we have a problem. Claire, no. You wanted honesty. She took a breath. I am not walking into a wedding where one of us is waiting to discover whether the other secretly settled. What are you saying? I'm saying we should postpone Saturday. The room seemed to tilt. You want to cancel the wedding? I want to postpone it. 2 days before? I'd rather disappoint 200 people than spend 20 years punishing each other for a question we were too scared to answer. I stared at her. Claire picked up her coat. At the door, she turned. I love you, Daniel. I swallowed. She touched the engagement ring on her finger but did not remove it. And I'm not giving this back tonight because I'm not ending us. Then what are we doing? Her eyes held mine. Finding out whether we're choosing each other now, not because of 8 years ago, and not because of Saturday. Then she left the food on my table and walked out. By 8:30, our parents knew. By 9, the venue knew. By 10, my phone had become a small machine for delivering panic. I turned it face down. Rachel came over without asking. She walked in, saw the untouched Thai food, and said, "That went well. We postponed." I heard. From who? Mom. Who heard from Diane. Who probably told Mom while actively hyperventilating. I sat on this couch. Rachel lowered herself into the chair across from me. You still together? Yes. Ring still on her hand? Yes. Then this is bad, not fatal. I looked at her. 200 people were supposed to watch us get married. They'll survive. I've wasted everyone's money. You are not marrying someone to justify a catering deposit. I covered my face with both hands. Rachel waited. Finally, I said, she loves me. That sounds inconvenient for your current crisis. She does. I know she does. Then what are you actually afraid of? I looked down at the floor. That one day she'll wake up and realize she chose familiarity instead of desire. Rachel's expression softened. That's Natalie talking. I know. No, I don't think you do. She leaned forward. Natalie left because your relationship with her stopped working. Claire is not required to prove she'll never change. Nobody can prove that. Marriage is not a warranty. I almost smiled. Rachel continued. You want Claire to tell you she would pick you out of a lineup of strangers, but that isn't how love works. She picked you after seeing you sick, stubborn, broke, grieving, annoying, generous, scared, and probably badly dressed. Probably? I'm being kind because you're suffering. I shook my head. She stood. Call her tomorrow. Not tonight. Why? Because tonight you're trying to win an argument against a woman who isn't in the room. After Rachel left, I found the small wooden box Claire had given me on our engagement night. Inside were ticket stubs, photographs, and scraps of ordinary years, a parking receipt from the hospital when her father was sick, a paper coaster from the diner where I proposed, a note I had left on her windshield before a job interview. You already know how to do the work. Make them catch up. Underneath it was an index card in Claire's handwriting. 8 years, still choosing you. She had written it 6 months before our wedding. I sat there for a long time. The next morning, Diane called. I almost didn't answer. Daniel, she said, I'm not calling to defend Claire, okay? I'm calling because I owe you something. I waited. You were in my house. I should have noticed you came back. You didn't know. No. But I was asking questions that affected you. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Diane continued. I asked Claire whether she was marrying you because she was afraid to lose you. I heard. What you didn't hear was why I asked. I said nothing. My marriage to Claire's father started with love. But for years I stayed, because I was afraid of starting over. After his illness, we repaired a lot. But Claire watched enough of our bad years to confuse endurance with commitment. That surprised me. Diane said, I wanted to know she wasn't doing that. And what did she say? You should hear that from her. I closed my eyes. Diane, no, this is the exact problem. You listened to part of a conversation that belonged to the two of you, and now you want me to give you the ending. She was right, which was becoming an exhausting pattern in my family. Before hanging up, she said, for what it's worth, when Claire talks about you, she doesn't sound like a woman tolerating her life. That afternoon, I texted Claire, can we meet somewhere that has nothing to do with the wedding? She answered 10 minutes later, Claire, the diner, 6. Our booth was empty when I arrived. Claire was already there, no makeup, hair loose, ring still on. I sat across from her. For the first time in years, neither of us knew how to begin. So I said the hardest thing first. I'm sorry. Claire looked at me but didn't rescue me. I'm sorry I heard fear and treated it like evidence. I'm sorry I made you prove your love in a hypothetical world where our entire history didn't exist. Her shoulders lowered slightly. I continued. I was asking whether a stranger would choose me because I still think Natalie leaving meant there was something fundamentally unchoosable about me. Claire's eyes softened. That's not true. I know. Intellectually and emotionally, I'm working on it. A faint smile appeared. Very romantic. I had a better speech in the car. What happened? I met traffic. That earned a real smile. Then it faded. Claire folded her hands around her coffee. I'm sorry too. For what? For assuming you understood what safe meant to me? I waited, she said. When I told Mom I was afraid I'd chosen the life I already knew, I wasn't wondering whether I loved you. I was wondering whether I'd been brave enough in my life. What does that mean? With Evan, I almost moved because he wanted me to. In college, I picked classes because they sounded responsible. I stayed close to home when I wanted to travel. Sometimes I choose what I know because uncertainty scares me. I listened. And then there's you, she said. You're familiar, but you're also the one person who has never asked me to stay small. She reached into her bag and placed a folded piece of paper on the table. It was a reservation confirmation. 2 plane tickets to Lisbon. Departure, October. I stared at it. What is this? A trip I booked 3 weeks ago. Why? Because you keep saying you want to see Portugal, and I keep saying someday. I looked up. Claire's eyes were wet. I was going to give it to you after the wedding. I wanted our first big decision as married people to be something neither of us already knew. My throat tightened. She continued. I am not marrying you because I'm afraid of change, Daniel. I'm marrying you because you're the person I want beside me when things change. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Then I reached across the table. Claire let me take her hand. I want to marry you. I know. No. I want to marry you without needing you to guarantee you'll never regret it. Her fingers tightened around mine. That's closer. And I want you. Not just the life around you, not just our families or the diner or the history, you. Claire looked down once, blinking fast. I said, we don't have to do Saturday. She looked back at me. Good. My heart dropped. Then she smiled. Because Saturday was yesterday. I stared at her. For the first time in 48 hours, I laughed so hard the waitress looked over. Claire laughed too. And something inside me finally loosened. We did not reschedule the wedding that week. That surprised everyone, including me. Instead, Claire and I spent the next 6 weeks doing something we probably should have done before ordering flowers. Talking about marriage without talking about a wedding. We discussed money, children, careers, aging parents, where we wanted to live, what would happen if one of us needed to move, what loyalty meant, what freedom meant, and which fears belonged to the present instead of our pasts. Some conversations were easy, some were not. Once I admitted that part of me still wanted reassurance every time Claire made an independent decision. She said, "I can reassure you. I can't make every decision around that fear. That hurt." It also helped. Claire admitted she sometimes used humor to avoid saying she needed something. I said, "I had noticed." She threw a dinner roll at me. We kept the Lisbon trip. In October, we got lost twice, missed a train once, argued on a steep street in Alfama because I refused to admit I had read the map wrong, and spent an entire rainy afternoon in a cafe talking about absolutely nothing important. It was one of the best weeks of my life. Not because everything went smoothly, because it didn't, and we still liked who we were together when plans failed. 4 months after the wedding we postponed, I took Claire back to our diner on the first Sunday of the month. She saw the small ring box beside my coffee and said, "If you propose again, I'm charging you for emotional repetition. I'm not proposing." Good. I already said yes. I opened the box. Inside were 2 simple bands. "I'm asking if you still mean it." Claire's expression changed. No jokes. No hesitation. "Yes, even though I'm safe?" She reached across the table and touched my face, "Especially because you're safe, and because you challenge me, and because I'm attracted to you, since apparently that needs to be entered into the official record." It does. "And because when I imagine changing my entire life, you're still the person I want to call first." That was the answer I had been trying to force out of a hypothetical stranger. I finally understood why I had never been able to get it. The woman I loved was not a stranger. Our history was not evidence against desire. It was where desire had learned our names. We married 2 weeks later in Diane's backyard with 32 people, folding chairs, barbecue, and no seating chart. Rachel gave a toast in which she claimed she had been right about us for years. Unfortunately, she had witnesses. Before Claire and I left that night, Diane hugged me and whispered, "Next time you overhear something in my house, walk into the room." I plan to. Claire heard her. She slipped her hand into mine. "Good," she said, "because I'm done having important conversations without you. We have been married for 3 years now. We still go to the diner on the first Sunday of every month. We still disagree. We still occasionally frighten each other by changing. But I no longer think love is proven by being chosen in some imaginary world where 2 people have no history. Love, at least for us, is much less dramatic and much more demanding. It is knowing the history and choosing anyway. If you had overheard the conversation I did, would you have confronted your partner immediately? Or would you have walked away first? Tell me what you would have done in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, like and subscribe for more stories about the choices people make when love and fear sound almost the same.